All right. More people are coming in. I see them right now. All right, we'll get started. Again, my name is JJ Risha. I'm with Pismo Ventures, and we're the host of the Global Startup Symposium. We've had a great week last week with early access. A lot of companies have um, connected with many investors, and investors have connected with companies as well. Um, as I was just telling Max a second ago, one of the companies between last week and yesterday, they've connected with 40 investors. That's absolutely mind-boggling. So if they can do it, I'm sure you can. So um, you just need to be more active. You need to be a little bit more aggressive, connect with people, connect with other founders, investors, connect with companies. It's both ways. So book appointments, chat, do whatever you can. Um, we had life science yesterday. Today is AI. AI presentations start at 1 p.m. Pacific time. And Meanwhile, we have the morning is all educational. We had an AI presentation earlier this morning, just before this one, about AI and the impact of AI on research and development. And now we're talking about building your team. And then the one right after this one, it is a different link. So if you want to view the next webinar, you still need to. It's still presented by Max, but you still need to log out and log back in with the other link that is available as well. So that said, thank you all for being here. Max, take it away.
Thank you very much, JJ. And before I introduce myself, I want to thank JJ for the opportunity to talk to all of you and also to just to say what an incredible job he's done with this symposium. I've had the pleasure of knowing JJ for many years, and he does great work in the startup world, proven by this incredible symposium that he's putting on. So I am Max Shapiro, and I wear a couple hats. I help early stage startups build great teams. That's People Connect, and we'll be talking about ways that you can build a great team. And after that, as JJ mentioned, we'll switch links and I'll talk about 20 questions that investors want answered before they'll invest in your startup. And I know both of these topics are important. You've got to have the money before you can build a team. So these are sort of in reverse order, but I hope you get a lot out of this. I have been in the startup world for 25 years. I started People Connect 25 years ago. And I say we are the most unique headhunting recruiting firm in the world. And people say, how in the hell can you make a statement like that, Max? And let me tell you why. To the best of my knowledge, there is no other recruiting firm in the world that will fill any position at any level for any type of company anywhere in the US. As you know, most recruiters will focus on one area. Joe says, hey, if you need CTOs, come to us. Susie says, if you need a CFO, we're your team. We fill any and every position. I'll give you a real quick example. A friend of mine was helping a cannabis company a few years ago in Boulder, Colorado, close its A round. In order to do that, they needed a COO, a VP of sales, and a bookkeeper. So we're talking C-suite, VP, individual contributor. To that point, we had not done any searches in the cannabis space, and we filled all three positions. So we're talking C-suite, VP, individual contributor. We're a boutique firm, and we try and keep it small and give personalized service to our clients. So let's talk a little bit about what's important in building your team. You can't build a great company without great people. It's a simple statement, but it's true. If you're not hiring top level people, you're not going to build a great team. Many investors, VCs and angels will say that people are your most important asset. You've got to hire top people. I see sometimes companies get their funding and they need a VP of sales or they're looking for a product head. And they say, hey, somebody on my board introduced me to these two people and I'm going to choose one. What we do and what you'll see later is we do a much more thorough search. And I hate when that happens. If you've got your funding, you need to hire great people and you need to work with a recruiting firm. Maybe it's People Connect, maybe it's somebody else, but to try and do it on the cheap does not pay off. And again, VCs name team as the number one risk factor in a company's success. So you got to hire A players. What's an A player? An A player can be somebody who's smarter than you. You need to be able to be comfortable enough to hire somebody that's smarter than you. If you can't, you're in trouble. There are winners and losers. One of the nice things, and I know there are people from all over the world joining us today, but here in the US, we're blessed because you can have a defeat. You might have lost something, you might have got fired, but you've got an opportunity to come back. Steve Jobs was fired from Apple. And look what he did when he came back. But you have to have some successes. You don't want to hire people that have been job hunting and they've got an excuse every time they left somewhere. It was somebody else's fault. It's okay to, if you got laid off, if you whatever, but hopefully it's not a pattern. So you want to focus on people that have had success. And here we do allow people to have one or two failures and still join a great team. Successful experience is really important. They have to have had a lot of success. Salespeople is something that, they're very difficult to hire salespeople because they're always selling. And if a salesperson says, well, in this last job, marketing didn't come through with the leads, and this other job that didn't work out is because, the person I was reporting to was worthless. If you got a lot of that, you've got a problem. You want to move on. And obviously you need team players. If you've got somebody that's going to silo themselves and has their own agenda, that agenda does not match yours, you don't want to hire that person. We will not submit a candidate to a client, a startup client, because we just work with early stage startup companies. We will not submit a candidate who does not have startup experience. And I talk to people, a guy will say, well, yeah, I worked 18 years at Cisco, but the last 2 years I was in this small entrepreneurial division. And that's not like working on a startup. You're going to work 60, 80 hours a week, and you want someone who's used to that. And that person will say, well, how am I going to get in the startup world if I haven't had any startup experience? And my answer is, hopefully you know somebody that will hire you without startup experience, but we're not presenting candidates to our clients that don't have startup experience. Okay, let's talk about the process. An old cliche, hire slow and fire fast. What does that mean? The hire slow makes sense. The fire fast, you're thinking, really? Let's talk about it. Hiring slow means you're really taking your time. You are vetting this candidate. You are having a multitude of people on your team talk to her, talk to him. I don't know if it's like this today at Google, but when Google got started, if you were a candidate for a position, they told you you're going to be here 10 hours. You're going to have 10 one-hour meetings. You'll have some time to eat. One will be a lunch meeting. And at the end of the day, when HR reached out to all the people on the Google team that interviewed Susie or Joe, if one person didn't like them, they were toast. They were out. So take your time. It's expensive to make mistakes. Don't rush into something. Let's talk about firing fast. If you've got somebody that is not performing and you sit down with them and you go over the KPIs and they agree everything's great, they're going to hit all of them, and 3 months later they haven't, let them go, because you know what? They're not having success. They know that. This is not the right place for them. They're going to be better off with another job, and you're going to be better off bringing somebody else in sooner rather than later. You want to have a structured recruitment process, and that needs to be the same for everybody. So it just can't be helter-skelter. You've got to have a good HR person, whether that's a fractional HR or full-time. If you're really early, you don't need full-time. You can get by with a fractional HR person to set up that structure in your recruiting process and make sure that it's being followed. So again, you want to level the playing field to evaluate the candidates. It's going to change. You need to be flexible. You need to be able to pivot. It's a startup. And you're going to be judged on fairness and equality in your hiring practice. If the word gets around that you're not, that's not good at all. And it's not that difficult. You want to balance quality with quantity when reviewing candidates. So if you're doing a search by yourself, you find out how difficult it is to wade through 150, 200 resumes and go through the whole process. and we'll talk about what we do in a minute. But if you are doing that and you're looking at resumes, if you're not sure about somebody, pass on them. You want to look at a resume and say, this is a person I would love to have on my team. And so I'd love to talk to them. I want to bring them in. But again, if you're not sure, don't bring in too many people. You want to set the bar high at the resume review stage. And that's really what I was talking about just before this. You don't waste time on candidates that are mediocre or mediocre plus or B players. You want A players. So when the candidate comes on site, introduce them to the whole team. You're going to be judged on how they respond to meeting you. And it's important if you're walking into an office and you're not meeting your candidate, and you're not being introduced to any of the people working there, that's a red flag. You want to give candidates an opportunity to spend time with the rest of the team, and you want the team to spend time with potential hires. So whether that's over lunch, whether that's Zoom, whether that's bowling, whether it's having a beer, whatever it might be, make sure, again, that you're taking your time to hire slow, fire fast. By 2025, we expect 36 million of us, 22% of the workforce, to be working remotely. COVID was the best thing in my mind, for companies and for building a team, because today, when we take on a search, over 85% of the clients that we're doing searches for are okay with virtual. There's that rare exception where there's some hardware involved and person is going to be the VP of operations and they need to be there. They need to be there when things are being assembled and when things are being brought in. That makes sense. But in almost all other cases, virtual works. And again, that's a plus for you as the entrepreneur. It's a plus for candidates as well. Okay, let's talk about some questions that you can ask during an interview. A broad, open-ended question, and all of these questions there are follow-ups for them. So tell me a little bit about yourself. From kindergarten through high school, what were your activities, sports, dance, whatever it might have been, subjects you liked the best, what your grades were like, kind of people you hung out with. And I like to end this with, you went to Miami University of Ohio. Why did you choose that? And what other schools were you looking at? So you're just going to learn about the person, have them talk about themselves and see what gets them excited and where they had success when they were growing up. This is an interesting question. I like this a lot. What experience did you have before you were 12 that impacted your life? So let me tell you my personal answer to that question. When I was 12 years old, I was about 6'2", and I loved basketball. And it just so happened, I was in sixth grade, an NBA team moved from Milwaukee to St. Louis, my hometown, and they became the St. Louis Hawks. And I was the only kid in the entire city that picked up the phone and said, "Can I be your water boy?" And the coach of the team was a guy named Red Holzman. If you're an NBA fan, he went on to coach the Knicks to the championship. The end of my interview, he said, "Son, you'll just be working for Prestige. Is that okay?" And I said, "Yes, sir." He said, "Do you know what that means?" I said, "No, sir." He said, "That means you're not going to get paid, kid." Well, I wasn't thinking about getting paid. I was starting seventh grade, their first season, and now I was in junior high school, first year of junior high, and I could say, "Hey, Billy, hey, Steve, hey, Joey, you want to come down to the Hawks game with me? My dad will drive us down before the game, pick us up. And you can sit on the Hawks bench and help me hand out water and towels, or you could sit on the visitors bench, the Knicks or the Celtics or whoever was playing." And if I hadn't made that call, I wouldn't be here today, because a guy who was on that team became the general manager and coach of the San Diego Rockets. And he had liked my evaluation of players when he was coaching the Cincinnati Royals, and he hired me. So if you think back, it's interesting. Many people were influenced by something that happened, around age 12, before age 12, maybe a little bit after. Really good question to get to know a candidate. What are the 5 words that best describe you? And this is a sort of a stock question. A lot of candidates will have a stock answer, but dig down and ask them why they feel that those are the 5 words that describe them. Tell me something unique about yourself, something I would never know. Again, let's get to know this person as a person. What's your dream job? If that dream job correlates to the job you're offering, that's a real positive. And are you a team player? Now, who's going to say, "No, I'm not a team player"? Are you a team player? Yes, I'm a team player. Okay. Give me some examples of situations that you were in and that shows that you were a team player. What would your coworkers say about you? Another, you've got to dig down. Coworkers are going to say, I cooperate, I work hard. Give me some examples. And tell me about a time that you had a conflict with a coworker and how it was resolved. Have you ever had to fire someone? How'd you feel about that? If it doesn't bother someone to let somebody go, that's another red flag. It's no fun to fire people. As I said earlier, you need to fire fast, and you're doing that for you, and you're also doing that for the candidate, but it's never easy. Have you ever been asked to leave a position? Why? Why were you asked to leave that position? And you want to look at that person's resume and find out every time they left a position what the reason was. What work are you most passionate about in your current role that you'd like to continue in the next one? Again, you want to make sure you've got a match here. Why'd you leave your last job? Why'd you leave the job before that? What do you know about this organization? If someone shows up for an interview, whether it's on Zoom or a call, and they have not done their homework, just end the call. I mean, it's like, come on, if they didn't care enough, and from a candidate standpoint, they may be interviewing a lot of companies, but from your standpoint, you want to make sure that they're well organized and they know what you're doing. If they don't, why would you want them on your team? Why do you want to work here? I think it's important for a candidate to be able to tell you why they want to work at your company and how they can contribute. And what are they looking to learn or get exposure to in their next role? Is there a correlation there between what you want them to do and what they want to do? How long would you expect to work for us if hired? People leave jobs quickly these days, and you need something that's going to be able to attract them and keep them there once they're there. And you'll find out a little bit more when they talk about how long they expect to work for you. Why do you feel you're fit for this position? Again, it doesn't matter whether English is your first language or not. It doesn't matter whether you're a geeky developer. You need to be able to tell people why you are the person that should fill this position. What kind of salary do you need? So you can ask people what they're looking for. You cannot ask them in California and many other states, as of about 2 years ago, you cannot ask them what their salary is. Because what was happening was people were getting hired by companies at a lower pay scale than people were getting at that company because they weren't making much money. Let me explain that a little better. So this happened a lot in education, where a teacher might have been making $70,000 a year, and the same position with the same amount of experience in a school district that had more money, was in a bigger metropolitan area, that position might have been paying $90,000. So what was happening was people were saying, well, come over here, we'll give you a $5,000 raise, $10,000 raise, but they were getting $10,000 less than a person with that same experience. So the state of California was the first state that said you can't ask somebody what they're making. You can ask them what they're looking for, clearly, because if they're looking for something that's $50,000 a year more than what you're offering, you don't want to spend a lot of time with it. It's $10,000 or $15,000. Deals usually get worked out, but if it's a job that's $125,000 base for a sales account exec, and Susie or Joe say, I need 180 to start, that deal's not going to happen. What would you do if you had enough money to retire now? I love this question. Just again, get a sense of what they're like and what gets them excited, where they envision being in hopefully 20 or 30 years, not 3 or 4 years. What have you done to improve your knowledge in the past year? God, there's so many opportunities to learn today. It's crazy. And now with AI, it's even easier. So, you want people that are learning something every day. And if there's nothing that they can tell you that they learned about in the last 6 months, then that would be a red flag as well. So, we went through the Great Resignation that we saw during COVID. Again, I think COVID was a great thing for employers and employees, for sure. A little bit about our services. So we do our work on a contingency basis. There are 2 types of recruiters. There's the recruiting firm that's a retained firm, and they're going to get paid whether or not they've made a placement. And I'm an old school guy. 81 years old. I work 60 hours a week, and I do that because I love working with startups. I love helping them build great teams. I love helping them get money. But I'm also, as I mentioned before, I'm from St. Louis, and some of you might know that the slogan for the state of Missouri is the show me state. So I'm a big advocate of that. If I say that we can get you some great candidates and we're doing that, great, we've earned our fee. And if not, then, we haven't and we don't deserve to get paid. So I'd love to help you any way that we can, and just reach out to me, max@peopleconnectstaffing.com. I'm on LinkedIn, MAXSHAPIRO, and I've enjoyed doing this with you. And JJ, I don't know if we have time for any questions.
We do. We got plenty of time. We got maybe about 6, 7 minutes. So we have a question from Robert. How do you work best way with serial entrepreneurs who are looking for the next great opportunity, but don't want to be the CEO or a co-founder?
Well, that's an interesting question.
It is. Yeah.
I've never heard anybody say that. To me, that's a question to talk to somebody else about, it's, oh, man, I mean, we see a lot of people that want to be startup CEOs, and JJ and I know, and everybody else in the startup world knows, it's not an easy thing to do. And if that question is coming from, I want some work-life balance, that's a challenge with a startup. I had a call, met a guy in Manhattan, though, about 10 years ago, and he was a young, fast-talking, salesy kind of guy, and he had something that was like Yelp, and he was just going all the time. And he said he was a graduate of Duke, and he was brought down to Duke to speak to MBA students. And someone raised their hand and said, "Could you talk about work-life balance?" And he laughed. He says, "Like, in a startup, there's no work-life
Right.
balance."
Yeah.
So, so I mean, I guess the answer is, if you've got a great idea, find somebody who's taken a company or an idea and grown it into a big successful company, and figure out, you'll have an idea what you want your role to be. And if you don't want to be the founder or co-founder, that would work. But it's a challenge to find those people. And if you need any help, love to help you with it.
Yeah, that's an interesting, yeah, I guess you can understand it that way. If someone has another idea, but they want to start a company and don't want to really run it, that's one. But also, I kind of understood it in a different angle. It's like, I've done this before, I can help others, but I don't want to be the CEO. So
Yes.
if that's the case, maybe the answer is you could be an advisor or a board member, right?
I like that. I like that. Or do fractional work, fractional
Or
consulting.
fractional work, exactly. Because the value you can add is tremendous.
Yeah, I agree. And I'm smiling because I love the word fractional, which we never heard before COVID. It was,
Yeah.
I do consulting. I do consulting in accounting. I do consulting in sales, but now it's fractional. It's a great word. I like it. It covers a lot of things.
Yeah. There is another question in the chat from Rick, 81 years old. Oh, it's not a question. I am starting my fourth and exciting company, and I am 79. How about that? So
Oh,
there.
that's impressive. I love it.
Okay. Any other questions for Max? Okay, well, if there are no other questions, I guess he's going to continue talking, but then the next webinar is about the 20 questions you should answer for investors before talking to them, or you should have ready at least.
Awesome.
Oh, so we do have another question, but it's another link. So if you go back to the agenda on the platform, you'll be able to join from there. It's a different Zoom. But we have another question. Do you see it or you want me to read it?
If you could read it, please.
Okay, for startups that haven't raised their first round and have only equity, what is the minimum, maximum, and average equity percentage that are offered for director level product development or senior level positions?
Yeah, that's a really broad question. Two parts, answer in two parts. One is go online and see if you can find salary surveys. But if you're really early stage and you're looking for somebody at a VP level, it could be anywhere from 1 to 2.5, maybe 3 points And it varies. C-suite is going to be maybe 3 or 4 points, and just an individual contributor could be a half or a quarter of a point. It's a pretty general answer, but again, if you go online, it's easy to find that. We do when we start a search for a company, we do salary surveys, which shows what a person would be looking to earn cash wise, if it's a sales position, cash plus commission, as well as equity. And the beauty of the virtual world today is that, if you're okay with that person being from Keokuk, Iowa, instead of Palo Alto, you're going to save a whole lot of money. And so we'll do a salary survey for 3 different cities, depending on where the company would like to see them. Maybe they're a European company and they're not moving over here, but they would like their person to be on the East Coast because they save 3 hours versus the West, and it's a lot easier to hop across the pond and go all the way
Yeah,
across
and
the.
they could be as qualified being somewhere else doesn't mean they're not qualified.
Yes.
Yeah, I agree. It's all over the place, Chad. If it's an advisor, maybe a quarter percent. If it's maybe a VP, director, senior, maybe couple, 1 to 2,
Yeah.
and maybe 3 to 5. And maybe if it's a CEO, they may request maybe close to 10. Um,
That's the magic. That's the magic number for CEOs. I mean, we've had some candidates we've interviewed, and they want a CEO position early stage, and they want 20%, 25%. We just end the conversation. They're not.
right.
They're not. They're
And
not
the other
motivated.
thing I would say is the only thing that you want to make sure you do it right. Vested over time, you can claw it back. There's a lot of stuff that you need to do. Talk to an attorney for that one.
Yeah.
So, all right. We need to switch to the other one. We'll see you on the other side. Thank you very much.
Thank you, JJ.
All right.